proclamation with us. Everybody do it, let's go. We're gonna turn the world upside down. We're gonna turn these people right side up. We're gonna shout until we're 6 feet over. We're gonna demonstrate something unusual. Come on! Something.
Partnerships are vital to our global outreach, enabling us to take the love and hope of Jesus Christ to those who need it most. Our Boots on the Ground Partnership Program physically ministers to those in desperate situations all over the world. The Israel Partnership furthers Kim's legacy of outreach to Israel and Jewish people worldwide. We invite you to become a partner today. Join us today and be part of a community that inspires hope, brings restoration to life, and often healing from the past. Together, we can make a difference, and we thank you for your ongoing support.
Hello, friends. I'm Donna Clement Petrushka, and I am honored to invite you to something truly extraordinary, the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Now you can gain unprecedented access to my father's entire digitized video archive. Every prophetic moment, every powerful teaching, every anointed worship session is now available to you in the Prophecy Vault. We've also enhanced the prophecy database, meticulously updating it with new video content and profound insights. Plus, I'm excited to share that my dad's special School of the Prophets teachings are included, offering you deep, transformative lessons on hearing God's voice and understanding his revelations. As part of your membership, you'll also gain access to my prophecy blog, where I break down and analyze my father's prophecies, connecting them to current events. This blog will provide you with exclusive insights and a deeper understanding of how God's word is unfolding right now. And we're offering something truly special: exclusive analysis sessions available only to members of the Prophecy Vault. These sessions will go beyond the surface, providing in-depth exploration of specific prophecies and their implications for today and the future. Your partnership is crucial. Not only will you gain access to these incredible resources, but you'll also help us continue the vital work of preserving, digitizing, and adding new Kim Clement material to the archives. So, I'm inviting you to step into the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Let's embark on this journey of revelation together, and I can't wait to see you inside. What's new at the House of Destiny Network?
There would never be an appreciation of light if there were not darkness. There would not be an appreciation of healing were there not sickness. In other words, God's glory excels when Satan endeavors to take somebody down, whether that somebody be in sickness, whether that somebody be in poverty, or whether it be some financial crisis in their life. When he does and God intervenes, oh, how much greater is the glory that comes to God, for out of darkness comes glorious light.
We're all different, and listening is really going to help us. Not listening for what maybe we're familiar with, but listening to the heart of the individual that's speaking to us to find out what makes them tick, and ultimately all in the kingdom and to help other people.
Yes, these leaders that call themselves gods, and this is a theme that he kept picking up on as he prophesied over the years. I remember him speaking of the little men, Kim Jong-un and Putin and these little men who thought so highly of themselves. And so there he is saying, why is this one in Russia saying, I am God?
What God did with this ministry and through this ministry and through this man of God, Prophet Kim Clement, was to dwell in the future. The future drove him. It was tomorrow. that Kim would get up every day and seek. He didn't look to the past. He didn't pay that much attention to the now. When he got up every day, his MO was tomorrow.
It's economy.
Yes.
It's psychology. It's altogether what Israel is being, it's facing from people that were even thinking to come,
Yes.
and now they've canceled.
The point that you're making there, Dubs, is an excellent one, because this is the reality. Like, even for me, I think, oh, well, thank God no lives were lost. But like you're saying, you studied, you went to school to be a tour guide after all the other things you did, and now you're suffering. You've been suffering for years now.
What do you do when your brook dries up? Well, number one, we don't depend on the brook. Number two, God's going to take us to a better place. And number three, you have to believe that. And that is the way it is, even though it doesn't look like it. And number three, God wants to prove to you that He has not forgotten you.
Hello, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. I see you in the chat. Everybody saying Happy Mother's Day, and Happy Mother's Day to my beautiful mother, Jane. It's so important to remember your mothers. And especially in the world we live in today, a good mother is such an important thing to have. And, all the different things that we've seen happen that diminish that role and tell women, oh, you need to be basically a man. That's what feminism has said to us. You got to do it like a man. We can do it better than a man. What about being a woman? And a big part about being a woman is being a mother and being a good mother, so you can raise decent human beings. And, another thing is, if you look at the children today, they are so easily influenced. And a lot of the problem with that is because they don't know the Bible. And that's what a part of being the mother is raising your children with the Bible and the Word of God, and what it means to be a Christian, and what all of that stuff means is so important. And all of that stuff I learned not just from my dad, but from my mom, from my grandmothers, and all the women in my life, my aunts, dear friends who have been like mothers. So, and I am a mother. And so understanding the importance of that, I have two beautiful children. It's so important to be a good mother. And that's part of what being a woman is. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so remember that today, and all the mothers out there, as a mother and having one, we know that it's not easy. That is not an easy job, and it's often diminished in society. And stay at home mom. Let me tell you, that's work. That is a full-time job. So hello to everybody. I see you guys in the comments. Louisville and Seattle, Washington. Oh, I know there's some stuff going on in Washington State right now. They just passed that law about the trans discrimination, which would allow them to take children away from their parents if they don't agree with transitioning their children who are being indoctrinated in the schools that our tax-paying money funds. So those are the kinds of things that need to be sorted out. And a lot of that my dad was seeing through prophecy years ago. And part of the awakening or the reawakening or waking up, whatever you want to, not being woke, but being awake, is realizing those things and how cunning the enemy has been in infiltrating our society, our schools, even our churches, our homes and our lives, into diminishing the role of what a woman is and being a mother. And so we honor all of the mothers today. Happy Mother's Day. Again, happy Mother's Day to my beautiful mother, who I've not seen yet, but I'll see her afterwards. And I have also got a very special guest today. He's back, Trey Smith. And before I bring him on, though, I'm going to just explain a little bit what I did this weekend. So you guys know last weekend I had the flu, which I'm still not 100%. I'm okay. I'm better. I'm fine. But it was a little bit difficult. And I was invited to speak at a tent revival with Engaged Ministries, Pastor Jeff Kennard and his family in Lowell, Arkansas. And this tent revival, it was, oh my goodness, it was so great. It was. I wish I could have stayed longer and been there for more. I had to fly on an airplane. Initially, my plan had been to drive there, but I had been sick and I wasn't sure what was going to happen, and all this stuff came up, and I had to fly. Now, you guys know I haven't flown in over a year. It's been a long time since I got in an airplane. But I really want. I missed it. I was invited to speak last year, and I missed it, and I really wanted to go. So I said, "Okay, we're gonna fly." So my husband and I, on Friday afternoon, got on a plane, connected, and we're in Nashville area. Connected in Charlotte, so we went that way, and then flew back over Tennessee to get to Arkansas. So I don't know how they figure out these flights. It's just insane. But of course, there's more. I mean, we had to pay $25 a person just to check in. That's what they're doing now, I guess. We didn't know that was going to be a thing. We had no checked bags. We both had like suitcase backpacks. So we had no checked luggage. They still charged us $25 a person on the way there and on the way back. So on top of paying for your flight, thank God we didn't have checked bags. We would have paid for those. We have to actually pay. And we didn't check in at the counter. We checked in on the phone online. Still, they're charging $25. This was American Airlines. So I don't know if they're doing that at all the airlines. It's been so long since I've flown, but every time it just gets worse. I was saying to my husband, next thing they're gonna start charging us for oxygen on these flights, and they squeeze you in like sardines. They truly do. But I did it. I flew, and I made it. And we arrived in Arkansas Friday night after it was late. It was 8 something when we landed. By the time we got a rental car, got to a hotel, checked in, it was closing in on 10 o'clock. And Trey Smith was there. So we called Trey and we were like, "Where are you? You want to eat?" We were so hungry. So we met Trey and his wife, Julie, and we went to eat together. And we had such an interesting conversation that I said, "Trey, you got to come on the show on Sunday." So on Saturday, got up, got ready, checked out of the hotel, went to the tent revival. It was so amazing and anointed. I wish I could have stayed longer. Amanda Grace was there. Pastor Greg Locke, my pastor, he was there. And I presented some of my dad's prophecies. We kind of recapped the Trump prophecies and those things. And then we had a look at some of the India-Pakistan stuff that you guys can watch this Wednesday. Christy and I are doing a broadcast on that and covering some of that again. And so we're going to go in depth on India, Pakistan. Do not miss this Wednesday analysis with me and Christy at the House of Destiny, houseofdestiny.tv, or on YouTube, or on Rumble, or on X. We're putting them everywhere, but you don't want to miss that because my dad had some visions in 2012 that were very interesting. And we've put them up before and we've played them for you before. And even the A to Q thing. And if you remember, I for the longest time thought that he was talking about Q and the Q movement. But once reanalyzing those, I was wrong about that. There's something more to that. So now that we've seen what's happened between India and Pakistan, Christy and I had a good long look at those prophecies. So do not miss this Wednesday, houseofdestiny.tv analysis. And you'll be able to watch in depth about those prophecies from the visions Dad saw in June of 2012. So interesting. Ultimately, he saw that everything was going to be okay, but he saw an issue with nuclear. He saw a weapon. He saw a forest, a giant forest in this country. They were hiding a weapon, a mustard color. He saw. We're not sure if that's as a result of this weapon. So we don't exactly know, but we're looking at those prophecies. Anyway, I shared those and some other things at the tent revival. And it was just so great and such a blessing to see people after I was done talking. a bunch of people came up to talk to me, and that was just so great too, to be able to talk to some people. The one man had been at the Den when my dad did the first broadcast in the new building. This is years and years ago now, and it's so cool when that happens, when I actually get to meet somebody who's been there in the meetings when he was prophesying these things. Those are just the best, and some amazing testimonies. And then right after that, we had to get in the car. I couldn't even stay to see Trey's presentation or Amanda today. Amanda's there today, Amanda Grace. And then I didn't get to see Pastor Greg Locke, but I heard it was really powerful. But I had to leave right away to be back here today, not only for Mother's Day, but for a number of reasons. I had to get right back. So we got on a plane right after I was done, went back to the airport, got on a plane, had another connection, this time in Dallas, and we didn't even land last night until midnight. So I didn't get home till 1 a.m. So I am tired. It has been the last couple of weeks with me getting sick, and you guys know I never get sick. The good news is seeing Trey and Julie. Julie was able to help me and give me a few ivermectin, which is what I didn't have. And if I'd had ivermectin, I wouldn't have gotten sick, because that's how we made it through COVID. Every time we would start to feel like, we may be getting sick, we'd take an ivermectin. It would just go away, just gone. So just checking through these comments, I see everybody. I'm so glad you guys could join me today. I know it's Mother's Day, so a lot of people are with their families today. So I'm so grateful for all of you who have tuned in today live with us. And I'm sure anybody else who might be doing stuff with their mothers, we completely understand, and hope you are watching this later. But without further ado, I have my guest, Trey Smith, and we have some very interesting things that we were looking at this weekend we're going to talk to you about. So let's bring Trey Smith on. Let's see, where is he? And this is Trey Smith from God in a Nutshell.
Hey,
Hello,
Donna.
Trey.
Hey, Donna. It's amazing and fantastic to be with you today. And I'm telling you that. So I brought up on. I've got both my phone and my wife's phone, and she's got an iPad over here. And I think there's some very powerful things coming, and I'm kind of just jumping into talking to you. But I'm very glad that you made that flight out there. So one of the reasons that you needed to fly back so quickly was because your husband enjoys caves and a lot of the dialogue at the table. So, but he made a very interesting statement, and he said, I don't know why the Lord has, and I didn't really think about it. I've been in caves with your husband. I put them in a video, and and this is hardcore caving. This is something very, very unusual to do. But he said, and this is going somewhere. A lot of your dad's prophecies were about energy. A new energy is arising, about cancer cures. New energy is arising. They'll be burning and burning and burning like you have never seen. There will be a great supply of oil. You can tell OPEC to go and to shove it, because you're going to have what you need. Saudi Arabia, when I weigh out the scales, he's going to put them in the poorhouse, even though they thought they were going to take over the world, and these kind of things, yada, yada, yada. But a new energy was arising, and this could have a variety of different meanings. A whole bunch of things just sort of came together for me there. And I was thinking about that. Now, to your husband, John, what he said is, I don't know why the Lord has got me out here crawling in all these caves. And I thought about that statement. It really hit me like a ton of bricks. He says, there's something about, I don't know what I'm supposed to find or look at down there, but caves are a very interesting thing. And he started talking about caves. And I'll talk a little slower because I get excited about it. He says, I don't know. And he was planning to crawl through some cave and go look at something. But we brought up to him, we had gone through a cave called the Ox Cave that was in Arkansas somewhere. And we're not cave people. We had, my wife and I mean, one of the last times I had been through a cave was with John, driving out clear to the middle of nowhere. He got special permissions to do this and was very proud of this enormous cave. And he had all the gear for it. I mean, it was quite something. This is unusual thing for someone to do. Yes. But by chance, Julie and I are driving past, and this is going somewhere. This is heading towards the things that I think are coming and are in your dad's prophecies, or at least portions thereof, or at least kind of the right direction. And in fact, the overview of why a lot of this stuff has happened, from your COVID to your bat stories to your energy coming to, in those prophecies, Donna, he also had an earthquake and a volcano. And he said the two great E's. But they will, though the earth will be scorched in some areas, and it won't do the damage they had anticipated. So someone is working on some portion of this, and they will say it is just a volcano, but it is not. It is a sign. So the Lord's going to use this. But he said also, but it will cause the earth to yield of its produce. And I was trying to understand that part of the prophecy, and I thought, well, maybe a volcano or an earthquake, maybe it's shaking. But he went over this numerous times. The nations of the earth stand waiting for the earth to shake. For the nations of the earth stand waiting. This means they know for it. Even Putin said to Biden, "You've handed Trump scorched earth." And I noticed that statement because it also appears in your dad's prophecies. The earth will be scorched in some areas. Now, I'd like to rewind a little bit to going through a cave. So here Julie and I are in this cave, which is a very unusual thing for us to do. We're not giant cave people. I loved going through it with John, but we stopped. It was even a rainy day. And here we are going through. And here's this kind of unusual guy that is taking us to the cave and telling us things that are, not just talking to us like people about his opinions about caves. Then he starts talking about bats. And this particularly caught my wife's attention. She loves all sorts of animals. There you got bats aren't particularly my thing. But I remember this back when I talked to John, when we met you at that restaurant, because the bats he knew about. So this man starts stating that bats are dying all over the United States in caves. And that there's some kind of a disease. It's called a white nose or white something disease. Now, I want to get to that in a second, the white nose disease. That may play a role in our little story here. So, and the guy's telling us that this may be from people going in and out of caves. So at Carlsbad Caverns, people used to gather to watch millions of bats come out of the mouth of the cave at night. It would look like billows of smoke, but it's actually not. It's bats. But people are very worried about it because those millions and millions of bats have turned into an estimated only 300,000 bats. And the real problem here, and they have to shut down caves and lock caves up and reduce the amount of friction, people going into caves, because you and your families visiting a cave could be giving these bats this white nose disease. But I'm there with John, and John says, but I just don't think so. This is your husband, John.
Yes.
Your husband, John, who's married to Kim Clement's daughter, who gave prophecies about energy, and he doesn't know why he's crawling around in caves. Yeah, I think I want to go through this hole here that I can barely fit through. And how long are you going to be crawling that way, John? Well, we think it's a quarter mile, but this is, tell us how it was. I don't know why I'm down there, but I'm down there. The Lord's got me down there.
It's true.
Okay, but part of it, sometimes we don't see all of the picture of anything, particularly when we're crawling through a narrow hole, right?
Good point.
And the Hebrews, they state that when the Mashiach, the Messiah, comes, he'll not only explain the letters, but even the spaces between the letters. So let's look at the spaces between the letters on this. So on bats, it was your husband that said to me, and I wouldn't have known about this had we not gone through this cave and talked to this unusual guy that's talking about the bats and the other things, that they're falling dead. So, and telling us that this is from tourists going through the caves and are spreading this disease. But wait a second, people have been going through caves since they first found caves, and doing tours through all these caves and watching the caves. So why suddenly are we having bats die in the caves? Okay, let's just set that one on the shelf over here as a space between our Hebrew letters for a second. Now, Elon Musk is telling you that not only, so we've learned through the dialogue of things that we've got many of our documents. It's another thing your husband John brought forth, that we're keeping documents of federal employees in caves, right? So what else are we keeping in caves that might be affecting the bats other than you walking through the caves? But let's go a step further with this, because we've also got all these enormous projects that are going. You've heard in the last weeks that they're talking about China would like to build a larger Hadron Collider than the one that's out there in Switzerland and these other countries. I don't know how much energy that takes, but you're running on crypto. I know cryptocurrency mining takes lots and lots of energy. I know that the real problem here, is explained to us by Bill Gates and other people, is that there's just too much of a population. You need to have nothing and like it. And that's because your carbon footprint, you're using too many light bulbs, you're playing too many video games, it's got too much power going on. So we need that power used on something else. We need that power used on whatever it is that's going to watch all of you on our AI programs and our big computers. So, and whether you think the Hadron Collider is opening a pit to hell or finding the secrets of the universe, or both, that thing takes a lot of electricity to do it. And your beast system at the end would require a lot of energy to do it.
Yes.
Okay, so with your bats in the caves, these bats are dying. Now, one of the things that the guy at the cave, as well as your husband John, will explain is sometimes they want to know how far the cave systems go. So the way they do this is they put dye into the water inside of the caves. Water is a funny thing, and they put little bots and stuff in there that'll go through there and tell them where the water is going, because that water can go through more areas than John can crawl through. And it turns out you can put water in a cave in Tennessee or in South Carolina, and it can pop up in Carlsbad. This means they're all connected, just like your volcano systems. Now, speaking of unusual earthquakes, while you were at this event, Donna, and Greg Locke was at this event, you had not one but two earthquakes happen right out there where you are, that are highly unusual, that there are articles about. Now, you have some people that are making arguments about these. My phone lit up about them, talking about that these earthquakes look like they're happening between power grids. And that may be true. That's an interesting thing to notate. And even Kash Patel made this statement on the X22 show a long time back. I remember the man that runs that show, his name is Dave, and he asked Kash, he asked him about continuity of government, and Kash Patel made this unusual statement. I don't know what he meant by it, but he said, yes, of course, the United States has a continuity of government plan, but we don't have a plan for if all the electricity goes. We have a plan, but there's not some button to turn all the electricity back on if all the electricity turns off east of the Mississippi. That's a strange thing to pop off and say for the guy that's about to become FBI director. Like, you're thinking about things that could be larger that are coming. Now, with our caves, when we put the water in, and we're finding out that all of these caves are connected, they're going from place to place to place. What are you showing me? Okay, I'll get there in just a second. So in your dad's prophecies, a new energy is arising. New energy is arising. Okay. So, and you've also got a debt problem. So you've got this debt to debt thing that he's been talking about the whole time. Now, what purpose did Saudi Arabia serve for the Satanists? Did I say that out loud? What purpose did Saudi Arabia serve for the Satanists, right? So you got to set them up with their own financial system, because they've never developed anything, not in their entire lives. So they ever developed anything. So you've got to provide them the money. They're going to be trading back and forth with each other. You got to provide them the oil wells that they're going to be getting them. So you're just paying them for all this. And I guess that's because somebody likes trafficking children. Did I say that out loud? Yeah. So on to the next one. So, but let me stop on this. So, but notice what they're there for. Okay. So they're not running any of the oil drills that are providing the oil that you're paying for. They're not providing any of the nuts, the bolts, the software, any of this, even the dollar bills that they're spending, even their own dollar bills were provided to them. So, but let's go from there. So, but there's somebody likes them for some reason here in the United States and provided them all of this for free. So let's set that up there on the side. So, but this was all about energy. Your dollar was based on the petrodollar, correct? Okay, death to debt. You can tell OPEC to shove it and all these other things. But you're going to need far more energy. They will be burning and burning. Yes, oil will always be sought over. There will be burning and burning and burning like you have never seen. But new energy is arising. New energy is arising. Something more powerful than the burning and burning and burning like you have never seen, because you're not going to throw away your gas-powered car. What is that new thing? Well, and how do you get rid of your debt? Well, if your debt was previously based on the petrodollar or that oil, right? Then maybe something, and you've got a volcano in the prophecies, and they've all been telling you that climate change is coming and that you're the real problem, and it's your carbon imprint and all of this, because they can't tell you that they're coming for your land. And by the way, wasn't it Hawaii that is that a volcanic island? I think it is a volcanic island.
I think so. Yes.
And a bunch of the locals, and those locals all vote Democrat, but it's the same people. Let's not go there. I digress. But But it's out there on the same island where they all wanted, I believe it was, what's the one rich guy's name? What does it really matter? He was going to build a smart city out there that's going to be powered. But that is a volcanic island, correct? That's a volcanic island where all those people need to go. And out in South Carolina, you have these tornadoes that come through. And once you wreck the property, now you're buying it cheap and you're doing now mining operations. Well, right here. So I think that reads volcanic white, and it's a white thing that affects the bats, isn't it? Volcanic
white nose.
Volcanic white gold. I can't read it. A lithium deposit valued at 1.5 trillion has been discovered in the U.S. And I'd like to take you down in this article and just read you a little bit about what we're doing here. Boy, these bats are being affected by something.
Yes.
So let's come down here and let's just see what this says. Okay. And ramping global interest in ramping up supply has fueled both exploration and debate. Many want a homegrown source. That means not just China from slave labor in the lithium mines, right?
Yes.
China is wanting minerals and mines. Everybody's coming in here. They were going to. Okay. Past eruptions. Now that means volcanic eruptions. This is how this was formed. This new energy that they're using here, right? Because we need something stronger than what we got, baby, to power the.
Right.
So when we are going to call for a beast system, we need the volcano god, baby, to come forth and power this sucker.
Exactly.
Past eruptions formed the cauldron, left mineral-rich clays across a wide basin. The environment eventually became semi-arid. That's important for wildlife, and these people don't care about wildlife. One study found that high levels of lithium in these sediments, suggesting unusual concentrated sources. Analysts say that if extraction methods prove efficient, U.S. could rank amongst the top global suppliers of this metal. In fact, the United States is found to have perhaps more of this natural resource than any other continent at present. Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Wanted to get you off of the planet. Now we're removing people from Hawaii and these other places. But if you were to back your dollar on this new energy that was coming, or some portion thereof, so I may not be right on all of it. I'm just over time, you see this and you see this and you see this. And remember, the Hebrews said it's in the spaces between.
Yes.
That explained as well, right? You see it come out over here, and they're stating the bats are dying. Now, I'd like to take you to another place on this. Before, they wanted to give you all shots that people are dying from can't. Well, let me not state that. That would be wrong on your show. Pretty much, I've had one family member that his name was my Uncle Stan. He had to take the vaccine. He just died of cancer, the cancer that arose. It was fast moving, that went all through his body. He had a giant lump on his neck when Julie and I went down there to go see him. I've got another cousin. He was forced to, he actually worked at the CDC and worked under Dr. Fauci and met him a few times. And that's a topic for another time. The first time I ever heard Dr. Fauci's name, I had somebody cussing it, and that was my cousin. And that was during the time I was putting together the video theory of everything. And you fly back and forth to Washington, and these people hate these people. And the word conspiracy, but I want to back away from the vaccines, and we all know that everyone's getting cancers. And that those cancers, just for the safety of your channel, we know we're not caused by the vaccine. So just flip that one around, because everything's upside down, right? Dr. and all the people that have cures for stuff that die, fall dead surrounding Dr. Fauci on one big spiraling circle.
Right.
Fauci's got a cure for AIDS, but here's the cure, brought to you by the Rockefeller Center. You get to keep the AIDS, but the symptoms go away. Now note that. That'd take like twice the work, wouldn't it? You keep the AIDS, but not the symptoms, right? This takes like double the trouble. You go read through the documentation.
Shocking, actually, it's shocking.
It is. It should really piss you off. Pardon my
Yes.
friend. This has been going on for a long time right in front of you. And the lies that they have told are so in your face. They will tell you conspiracy while they're taking the land out there in South Carolina, parts of North Carolina, and wherever else. We're not doing it we're not doing it for minerals. We're not doing it for nothing to see here, nothing to see here, nothing to see here. And when a volcano and an eruption goes off, and I don't know why these countries like Saudi Arabia keep telling everybody that they're going to do a volcano, but whatever the case is, the Lord is going to take and use these things.
Yes.
They're coming. And that new energy that's arising, because that's for you. It's not for whoever the parties are that are there, and those prophecies were in your, and those things were in your father's prophecies, and also
Yes.
cure for cancer. And I forgot
Yes.
where I was going with the the COVID vaccines. We have to remember at the start of this, which came from China, the
Yeah.
same people that want to take control of your energy, and the same people that the WEF guys really, really like. We want that
Yes.
model over there. They control everybody already with their big computer programs, right? And we need some juice for that, right? So they'll just chirp in line. See, you Americans are not chirping in line. They're trying to get you in that cattle corral where they can get you in the slaughterhouse, right?
Right.
Having trouble because you buck around. Those out there in China, they've got a system where they will neatly stand in line 6 feet apart. You won't quite do that yet, but a lot of people did. COVID started with, what was the problem there? I'm trying to think. So it wasn't just 6 feet apart. It wasn't just all these 666s. Where did that come from again? Oh yeah, bats were the problem, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So bats were the problem. So they were accusing bats, right? So you were told that this came from bats. It didn't come from a lab. It didn't come from Fauci. It didn't come from all these people it looked like it came from. No matter what the emails say, that's a conspiracy. Don't you dare believe it. The problem here is bats. And suddenly we've got bats dying. Right. Do you see how when you begin to look at this stuff, even if you're a little off this way or that way, the moment you begin with it, and all you have to do is start with the presupposition on any of it, that these people, whatever it is they're telling you, that it's not to help you, it's part of their lie. So if you're doing a round table, you're going to notice that this one will say this and cause a little problem, and then this one will say this, and it's going to be a little problem. But they're not all big problems, just one by one. So here's Facebook caused this problem, and this guy called, and Amazon caused this problem. But once you line them up together, they're a road, like those cattle cars that are leading the cows into the slaughterhouse. You may hit this wall and this wall and this wall, but you are going this way, baby. You see it?
Yes.
And this one just did this, and and this one just did that. That's the round table. The round table is a big spiral, a downward spiral taking you down.
Yes.
Back to the bats. So if these people cared about the environment, your bats wouldn't be dying. The bats play a crucial role, at least according to the guy at the cave. He seemed to really like the bats. My wife was concerned for the bats. And you should be concerned for the bats. But the bats, whatever it is that they're doing down there is clearly let's look at it logically. Is it you guys visiting caves that are affecting and making all the bats dying? Or is something else going on down underneath the ground that's affecting all the ecological systems that are down there? And in fact, somebody, because it'd probably be hard to say, hey guys, we're going to set off a volcano because we need this volcano stuff to come out that will power all our stuff. Or is it better just to see, you're at war, but it's a weird kind of war.
A new kind of war, isn't it?
Itching for a new
That's
kind
what
of
my dad prophesied. He said there's a nation itching for a new kind of war with America.
And a part of it's China. Now, so in that new kind of, I don't know if any of you saw the movie, or Donna, if you saw the movie Mars Attacks. It's an absolutely horrible film.
Yeah,
but,
I remember it.
But the aliens in that film would come down, and they would be like, and they would say, what would they say? Oh, we're your friends. Don't run. We're here to help. They just happened through the whole movie, the aliens, and they're just zapping you dead. And even the guy at the end, the Jack Nicholson character, is trying to work a deal with them in the end of it, because you're listening to them say, we're here to help, but they're just zapping you right in front of you. The evil that they're doing and pushing through with is right in front of you. So you say, well, okay, out there in South Carolina, are they taking the land for minerals? Conspiracy. Here, take another shot, man. Come get it. Well, my family members just all died of cancer. It's good for you. Bats are the problem, and your bats are dying. Sorry about all that.
But it's so true. That is true. And the thing is, that is what my dad was seeing. That earthquakes. He saw volcanoes. He saw the earth, like you said, the earth yielding of its produce.
In the context, all of those prophecies surrounding it, Donna, because I was thinking fruits and vegetables, but all of the dialogues surrounding that are about energy.
It's all about energy. And
Yes.
my dad was prophesying this stuff before digital currency, for instance, which requires a lot of energy to mine. And so you have this need for energy, not just, because we need more, because the new technologies we have require a considerable amount of energy, including AI, digital currencies. That whole system is going to be requiring a lot of energy. And so we see this, this struggle going on. And like you said, the OPEC, my dad prophesied that you're going to have an abundance of oil, and you can tell OPEC to shove it. That's what my
Yeah.
dad, to quote him directly. And so just
Yeah.
to clear that up for people who might not know the prophecies, because you know these prophecies sometimes better than I do. But there are these recurrent themes, and it's energy connected to the volcanoes and earthquakes, what's going on under the ground, and then out of nowhere, my husband starts going caving.
In hardcore ways, Donna.
Yeah, just not just like he's joined Grotto. He's just joined the Grotto. I think Nashville Grotto. He's joined, and
Yeah.
so I will say he did not do the 2,000-foot crawl. Remember, I don't know if you told
Oh,
you
okay.
that he did not do it. He was going to go in and check it out. So he's very cautious. I saw people saying, "Don't let him get stuck in the cave." He's very, very cautious. He films all of it. So, and I know a lot of you already watch his YouTube channel, but he films all of it when he goes in those caves. And the caves, and this is something you've noticed, and I'm realizing as well. That's actually a very prophetic thing for Kim Clement's son-in-law to be doing, and it was out of nowhere. He was going out and just like looking for arrowheads from Native Americans and Civil War, because out here where we live, there's still bullets you can find from the Civil War. A lot of the Civil War was fought here. My husband loves history. So it started out with him going and looking for things, and then he discovered one cave, and then there was more caves, and he started meeting different people, and he started going in and exploring these caves, not tourist caves. Now, we've done a few tourist caves since his interest was sparked, so I've gone once or twice spelunking. That's right. Now, what he's doing is actually not just a little bit of spelunking; it's a little bit more involved. The guys he goes with, they're rappelling hundreds of feet using rope and this equipment, and then they rappel down, and then they go further into the caves and explore them. But the thing is, people have been going into caves for as long as there's been people and caves. Why all of a sudden, and it's a very good point you're making, why all of a sudden is it affecting the bats when through all of human history, the bats were fine?
Okay, let's read about that here. Let's read about when the problem started, and I'll tell you with your COVID problem. So you had what was his name? Dr. Artis was discovering the Julie. Would you type in WEF or United Nations? I forgot which one it is that. They were buying up poisonous sea shale, poisonous underwater snail, and saying it was the key to snail, but specifically the snail venom. Okay. And he was finding in pee and people in urine and people in Italy apparently that were dying from the COVID. And you remember how dramatic. So we all freaked out here. There was something different that happened in Italy than happened here in the United States. And artists speculated, and a lot of people attacked him for it. So I don't know if he was right or wrong specifically on the water or how they got it in him, but they were finding in his reports, they were finding poisonous sea snail. These are deep sea creatures in the urine and feces from these people, finding venomous snake poisons.
I remember that. Yes.
Venoms. And these people. And then I went and I looked at who was purchasing this stuff. And China was the largest purchaser of all, literally tanks full. And then when the claimed COVID came, all these purchases start. So we need like tanker trucks full of venom. And I don't even know how you sit there and squeeze that stuff out long enough. You need machines and snakes and serpents. You look at the quantities of purchase on this, and he was the one that turned me on to all of that data. So now then you fast forward. So, and somebody's already pre-anticipating, but it's not just that you can find articles where the same stuff that's appearing in people's pee and feces or urine testing
snails.
when they're dying. What are they?
They're cone snails.
They're called cone snails, and they're extra
Cone
venomous. Hey, this is the secret to the future. Whose
Well,
future?
this is on the NIH.
Right.
website.
So yeah, whose future?
The
Oh,
NIH, yes.
Yeah.
Fauci's wife worked for the NIH.
Right. The key to great medical advances are going to come from these medical advances for who? Advances for who are these coming for? The bats. Let's read about the bats real quick.
Neurotoxins.
And somebody was, and they started saying your problem was the bats. Okay. So it would be a good thing if you had less bats, but also if you were going to use the argument that bats were a problem, and they were spreading all these diseases to you that came from bats, then wouldn't it be ideal if all your bats are dying? And this is the reason your bats are dying. Now now the bats were dying from some kind of a white nose.
Yes.
Is actually in the title of it. Well, it's white volcanic lithium is what you're mining for. I'd just like to point that out. So I don't know if the two go hand in hand, but the white nose syndrome, and there it is.
That's
if you can
interesting.
see it,
White nose syndrome.
there's the white nose syndrome, and we'll know if we're correct if all these articles disappear. I just pray the Lord's favor over this stuff. I'd like to get and deliver a very good Exodus film. I mean, this really isn't my thing, but there's stuff is once you begin seeing it, you can't unsee it. You know, it's like. Okay, let me just read to you about it. Okay, so okay. The disease has been confirmed in 34 U.S. states and 7 Canadian provinces from coast to coast. In March 2016, white nose syndrome was found on a dying bat in Washington state. Having jumped 1,300 miles. Now, remember our caves, and we can test, and it moves around through the water. And also, I was with Tim Greer. Let me show you this map here. Tim Greer, who was showing me hot springs. You're going to find that there's not really great answers on where water comes from, where hot springs come from. It'll tell you even if you go to places in Colorado that are places with hot springs. We don't know how deep the hole is. Yeah, well, whether they so the water is moving. You'll have areas. Tim and I went to, Tim Greer and I went out on his side by side, and he wanted to show areas where literally you'd have a dry stream and the water's coming up out of the ground. So, and that's what hot springs are. So it's all connected under there. But immediately when I started telling him about this bat issue and the minerals and the mining, he told me some things that I'm not going to share on here, but I will share this image with you. So you're going to find that, so over here in South Carolina, coincidentally, where all of your damage happened. So am I on the South Carolina side out there in Asheville? That's a hot spot for the stuff that you're looking for that can fuel your lithium. Then we're going to move over this direction where we're going to have some issues. Okay. Now I'd like to point out to you also that Moab, Utah. So in your nuclear race, or your race for the atom bomb, and some about the atom bomb and Oppenheimer, you've had a lot of dark stuff in your United States. And my father worked over at one of his first jobs, what he would say his favorite. He was a student scientist at Los Alamos. And my wife and I went there before he died. We drove him around to a bunch of places, and he showed us where he and mom lived in these little ugly green apartments out there in Los Alamos that are right there by that Oppenheimer house. Really? And you know what? I will go ahead and share something with you on this show that will. And I'm just going to lay it in you, the viewers' hands. My dad always had kind of an apple pie and spice, Mr. Sandman, bring me a treat view of things, and I'm happy about that. He always said because he couldn't spell well and stuff but he could write coding. So Julie and I went through there. We went through the Oppenheimer house, and there were 6 other houses there. And they're designed like little party houses with like this room over here. It has a built-in, like what they would call a little bar. We've got coffee stuff in there, but big bars all over the house. I mean, these homes would be worth millions today. The Oppenheimer house and these other 4 or 5 or 6 houses that were for Oppenheimer and his friends. Now, even in the Oppenheimer movie, even in the so, and this was the first time you were using billion as a word in a federal budget for the development of the bomb. Okay. Now, as you come up, and they'll say that they developed the Los Alamos test site because it's on a mesa, it would be hard to get to. All of those reasons are certainly true and could be definitely argued. But I'd like to state that Oppenheimer and his friends were in these houses that even today would cost millions of dollars. Okay. And I want to get to this in just a second. So, but before you get to those houses, you would go through at least 2 security gates. And the guy that hired Oppenheimer was the guy that designed the Pentagon with that shape for whatever cause. That's who hired Oppenheimer. Okay. And even in the Oppenheimer movie, they sort of tease around, just like they always do. They sort of shove things in your face that are very famous that my dad would laugh about. Yeah, Oppenheimer, he couldn't touch any of the gadget, or they called the bomb the gadget, because he had such fumbly fingers. I can't touch it. Right? Because he can't design anything. And then your math is better than mine, so he can't do the math for it. Okay. And then even in the movie, a very famous line, well, Oppenheimer, well, your friends all tell me you're not qualified to run a taco stand. Well, I might not be qualified to run a taco stand, but I can sure run the Manhattan Project.
Whoa.
Okay. So why is he there? Why is he there? Well, let me give you a possible answer for that question, because they hire their own. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and if you're going to, just like you've got millions of trillions of dollars that we're arguing the other day, remember how we're talking about underground stuff? And it's come out, well, wow, it looks like a lot of that money might have been spent on underground cities they're building. I don't know if that's true, but they're always telling you one thing while they're doing another, and all your money disappeared, and they were doing something else for it. And they were certainly becoming wealthy off of it. Well, to do that, you can't have the same guys that are building the bomb, because those guys love the country very much, right? They're dedicating their time, and they had a hand-painted sign. And they were sleeping out there that they've recreated out there at the entrance of Los Alamos. A hand-painted sign that says the Manhattan Project. They were sleeping on bunk beds. They'd have a shower for all the guys. These are your guys that could do the math and could build the bomb. And there are hundreds of them whose names you've probably never heard. You've heard Oppenheimer's name. The guy that's, when I saw it go off, some laughed, some cried. I had no idea where I was or what day it was. I remembered the line of the Bhagavad Gita. I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Somebody that was actually developmental for you would be stating, I'd just like to thank the teams that brought this together.
Right.
And it's happened today.
Exactly.
I'd like to thank the guy that did the mathematics. I'd like to thank the people that built the bomb. Here's the directors of those. We didn't know if this would work. No, he doesn't. He looks stoned out of his mind. You know why he looks that way, Donna? Because he's stoned out of his mind. That's happening. And he's been up for days, and he's not expecting it to work. He didn't do anything before the bomb. He didn't do anything after the bomb. Now, I want to get there and why I'm telling you all these things. And I never would have told my dad this. One of the last movies I watched with him was Oppenheimer. My heart sank when I was out there at Los Alamos, because you look at things, and then when you see them, you can't unsee them. So when we were at the Oppenheimer Museum, I asked the little old ladies there. There are these 6 multi-million-dollar houses with bars, and they're lush and they're posh. And they also have these enormous bathrooms, and they have pictures of it. We have lounge couches and all this, while the other guys that are developing all this are on bunk beds. And you've got to go through 2, even at the most classified place in the world, on the most classified project, and where you are using for the first time in government funding the word 1 billion. They're building all this posh stuff, and all of these houses are like this. Now, those 6 houses surround one thing, Donna. Do you know what that one thing was that was already on that road where they built that? I'd like to get to that in just a second. I asked the little old ladies there, I said, why is this road called Bathtub Row that all of these houses sit on? And she says, well, because the scientists, including Oppenheimer, loved bathtubs. So this is a room where they had this extra large bathtubs in 2 rooms, because you need 2 rooms, two big bathtubs as Oppenheimer. Now, across the way was only one other thing, a boys' home. A boys' home is where that road went.
Oh.
Yeah, you're thinking about it immediately. Now, they called it Bathtub Row, and you can even look this up because, see, the little boys didn't have bathtubs. They only had showers. so the little boys could bathe. And the scientists would let the little boys bathe in the bathtubs.
Oh,
Now, at the end of your Oppenheimer movie, you're finding that all of these guys, including the guy that did the math and the guy in charge of building the gadget, the big bomb, they never wanted to work with Oppenheimer again. They said, we'll sit down our classified badges if we work with this SOB son of a bitch ever again, is what they were stating, right? Just in plain English. Now, you don't do that because Oppenheimer went to some cocktail parties you don't like.
No.
You do that because there's other things. So when people talk about, and I think you've had, and so to launder money in mass amounts. By the way, this man spent the rest of his life talking about how to get rid of nuclear weapons. It was God himself that saved you by him being high out of his mind over there in those little party houses and drunk most of the time and mixing liquor with his coffee and sitting out there with his stupid little pipe. Because had he ever actually worked on the project, he would have destroyed it. And probably, you see how God has saved, and see, none of us know, and we've been so trained to think that villains are heroes and not know. And none of those men that worked on that stuff can go in there and tell you the real reason they don't want to work with him, right? They can't. Right. And I'm not, and notice in this whole dialogue, I never made one allegation about Oppenheimer, not one, but all of you sitting there, it's almost worse, isn't it?
It's obvious.
And things, I think there have been things that have happened in this nation. There's been a clean. So when Trump is telling you that the swamp is deep, I think he's telling you that it's just deep.
Yes.
And that it's so deep. Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
I'm reading something here because my husband had mentioned it to me about in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, although it was not a testing site for the atomic bomb, it was crucial in the production of the first atomic bomb through the Manhattan Project. Specifically, the city was built to house facilities that enriched uranium for use in the bomb.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was actually tested in New Mexico, which we know. But this area of Tennessee, and I only know this because my husband had brought it up to me.
No, see, you said I'm wearing a crystal. It's not a crystal. It's
I saw that.
It's no, it holds.
What's around your neck?
Yeah, it holds a liquid, and there's some of the guys. It's interesting. So actually. So some of the guys that have been working with frequencies have been working with the frequencies of the priests of different biblical artifacts and programming them. And we've got a video coming on it. And I just want to be very clear on. I just want to be very clear on that. But it's interesting that you say crystals, because a lot of, when you're talking about energy, you're talking about frequencies. And even those bats, they fly. See, they're blind. So they fly around by sonar and by frequency. And John and I had a frequency bracelet on that I gave. I just felt like I'm supposed to get, and he was so thrilled with it, because some people are. So John, who's exploring caves, was overwhelmingly excited about frequency, and I thought he's going in there where the bats, for example, are navigating these by frequency, and John is enjoying the caves. My point is this, is that I think you've got a battery of things happening at once, and some of them. So new energy, all of it. Tesla was working with frequencies. I just wanted to respond to that. When kings would put on a crown, they had different. So just like the priest breastplate, which had to be gold.
Yes.
Gold is a conductor of frequency, and all of these different gems have frequencies in them. And each one of these gems represented one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and each one is a different gem. The kings, when they would wear gold crowns, these weren't just for decoration with gems that are in there. The occult takes everything and twists it. So, but this holds a fluid. It's not a crystal. It's a little container, and it doesn't have anything in it, but it in theory could hold in theory, could hold things that are frequencies.
Hmm.
This goes along with something I've been working with. But go ahead, Donna. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I
No,
just
you're
wanted.
not interrupting me at all. I was just listening because that's the thing, everybody. He gave my husband the bracelet because when my husband put it on, he said before he put it on him, he said he had him balancing on one leg, and John was kind of trying to get his balance, and then he told him to stop. He put the bracelet on him, and then told John to do it again, and he didn't. He was steady as a rock, and he was so shocked. And he said, "Oh my goodness, I need something like this for when I'm caving, because you're climbing and you're climbing up, you're climbing down. Like, you have to have your balance when you're doing that." And so, Trey, you were so kind to give that bracelet to him. He's wearing it right now. He wore it today when he went cave. He's actually back now. He survived. He was fine. Did not do the 2,000-foot crawl, however, but he did go into the cave and spent, after all the traveling we did and all the stuff we did this weekend, he got up early this morning and went into that cave, which, I'm trying to remember the name of it. He made me write it down because I always have to know where he is in case something goes wrong. That
Yeah.
if it's not a certain time, you've got to come find me, just in
Yes.
case. And so we have a whole safety thing. But yes, he put that bracelet on, and it made a difference. And there is something about frequency, and if you think about that, like you said with the bats, they
Yes.
use
And
sonar to find their way because they're blind. They're blind. They can't see. And
yes.
that's how they
And
navigate.
your dad said these people that have been doing things. So you're entering a time and a period of undercover.
Yes.
So all of the things that they do, they accuse other people of doing, lying and stealing. And Trump was going to put the kids in cages, right? And
Yeah.
them put the kids in cages. You're the one destroying the environment. Well, wait a second. In Kim's prophecies, they've affected the air. They've affected the skies. They've
Yes.
affected the seas. America, you're not as secure as you think you are. And he talked about this nation that would come very suddenly. I don't know if that's in a physical sense or I think you're at the heavy parts of it. Donna, let's go here in your broadcast if we can, because this also comes directly following. You were invited to the White House, which I'm hoping that honor continues with you, that you have favor. There's a faith office in the White House now, okay? And you were invited in to look at this. Friends of yours, mine, friends of your ministry, Robert and Jamie Agee, as well as others involved in that group that I'm sure you know as well. But
Yes, and Robert put my dad up on Times Square prophesying, and this was what 2022. In the 2022, he put a video of my dad prophesying up on Times Square, and they do the billboards, and
the
they were
banners.
billboards and the banners
He
all
did
over,
that. Yes.
all over the
Yes.
country. And so he's the one who put my dad. And so there was my dad in Times Square on the big screen there, and
Yes.
you could my dad's prophecies were just going out and reverberating through New York. Now,
Yes.
that's important too, is that something my dad always used to say is when to declare that prophecy. So not only him prophesying, but then repeat it and repeat it, because that is that promise from God. And so this is all has to do with sound. And something about my dad was being a musician. He used to travel around with a sign that said the sound of Kim Clement. I have it at home. It's it's old now, that sign, but he carried that around with him all over, and it was the sound of Kim Clement. But he always spoke about the sound. And without even, he was just so prophetic that he often didn't really know how deep some of the stuff went himself. He was just so obedient. He would just prophesy. And there's a lot of depth to it. So, like, for instance, when we're talking about a new energy and him seeing, what did he see? He saw earthquakes, volcanoes. He saw also under the ocean. And I've had other people call me and talk to me about the different gases that are emitted when there is a volcanic eruption or an earthquake, and how that can be used for energy as well. And so there's a lot of layer and depth to this. Hang on, I'm getting a message here from Lou. He says that he has the link to your video. Oh, which video?
God inhabits the praises of his
Yes,
people.
sound.
God inhabits the praises, and that's what you're. And I think this is why that your dad's prophecies. Part of the reason were so powerful, Donne. The prophecies aren't just. A lot of people come in and they have a word from the Lord. Many people do this. Wonderful people. Your dad would do praise and worship to such a degree that, in fact, I remember the story you told me, Donne, while we were together just over the dinner, when your dad was, so they came in and they said, and the doctor, and you were really torn because the doctor said, if I do a surgery on the brain to remove the tumor, if I go in one way, it will make it where he can't walk. If I go in the other way, it will make it where he can't do hands. And people said, well, he's got to walk. But you came in, Donne, and you said, no. If I had to pick between the two, he's got to play the piano. That's how, that's,
I chased
that,
those doctors down the hallway and I said, don't you dare take his arm.
they would lay hands. So laying on of hands. So in all the pictures, probably even the one in New York, your dad has his hands
Yes.
up. The praise and it goes out. Nani, the most powerful kind of frequency are the praises of God's people. And that's where those prophecies and flow of the Spirit were coming from. It has a feeling that you can feel as it goes out with the hands. That's why the most powerful image of your dad is always going to be in the hands or on the piano.
Always did that.
Yes.
Would raise his hands up. And some of the most powerful prophecies, if you look at his posture, he was either playing the piano, creating a sound, and here you go again, there's frequency in the sound. And so, we could probably go on for a long time looking into that, the interesting things about frequency, Hertz frequency, and the frequency that they tune an orchestra to now, and how they change that, and the effect that sound has. And again, this is one of those subjects where people will say conspiracy theory, and it's been used for a very long. I think they started using, the CIA started using the words or the phrase conspiracy theory when all the stuff came out about JFK.
Yes.
I believe it was JFK that when that happened, that was a new terminology. People didn't use the terms conspiracy theory prior to that. And this was something that also came from the CIA. And so we know, and it's so interesting about the worship. I'm thinking about this again. The worship, it was through the worship that the prophecy was birthed. It was almost like he was like if one were to plow the earth and then plant the seed and then it would grow. That process, I'm just using it as an analogy, of him plowing through the worship and the sound, then he would hear. And anybody who's watched, any of you guys have watched my dad, almost every single time, that's how it happened. He would, during worship, creating the sound. You could even sometimes hear from how he was playing, how the prophecy would feel or what would come from it. Even this weekend when I did my presentation yesterday, I was playing, and I noted that during the one about India and Pakistan that I played for everybody, he's playing so beautifully, and then all of a sudden the piano becomes
chaos.
Remember
chaos.
when and then he started singing about India and Pakistan and the weapon and intelligence, and it was just very, very intense. Actually, I think that video is on.
Those people doing those things, Donne, cause chaos to beautiful frequency in their effort to steal stuff.
It can be used for good or for evil. And we as Christians, we use it in worship to worship God. We're worshiping him with a sound, and it's the praises of his people. We're making a sound and a song, or however it happens. And then I keep thinking of my dad with the sound. I mean, even when he prophesied over my daughter, who is a very talented singer, now that she's older, we know this. When he prophesied over her, I was pregnant with her, and he prophesied over her in my womb and said, "You have created a sound." And my daughter just happens to be a very talented singer. And so he loved that terminology. And he would always go, and it was very prophetic, I believe, that he would always go back to that terminology of the sound. But Lou, if you would share, I'm going to get Lou to share this in the description and also in the chat. Maybe Jacqueline, you could help him with it. From my page, I'm just going to make sure it's on there. Let me see. Yeah. Most recently, I uploaded this Pakistan, India, Russia, Iran. And we're covering this actually in much more depth on Wednesday. And we will be on analysis at the House of Destiny. I'm just checking to see if the one I'm wanting is actually in this. Yes. Okay, Lou, if you could share that link for my most recent, on my channel for the most recent, so people can hear this. Can we play it? Do we have this? April 5th, 2014. Can you play it? Yeah. Okay, Lou's going to play it for us. Let them hear what we're talking about. Go ahead. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, he's pulling up my YouTube channel.
Okay.
We are running a little short on time, but I want the people to hear this so they actually have an example, because we've done usually I'll give them some examples, and we haven't done that today. So I want them to actually hear what we meant. Because it's, someone, Florida Beach Mom, saying it's very peaceful. Saw that beautiful. And that it starts out peaceful, but then it changes. And this is an example of what I'm talking about, is that through that is where he would get the prophecies. It would come from that. And it all had to do with sound. And so again, what Trey and I are doing today is we're looking at, he's prophesying about a new energy. We know there's a connection with earthquakes and volcanoes. We know the earth is yielding its produce. We know, like he was saying, he said that they would be able to like we would be walking around on it, that it's under our feet.
Yeah, it's under your feet the entire time. I go ahead.
Yeah, let Lou just a little bit. I'll tell you when to stop, Lou, because this is a longer video.
There is a veil that is being torn, rent. Hear the sound, says the Spirit. The sound of fear, the sound of detriment. The upper regions of India, Pakistan, where they found the one that terrorized the nations, Usam. There is mischief. They are plotting, planning, putting together pieces, taking them apart, putting them together. Something so unique. That the princes of Persia, the Balkan territories, the activity of demonic power and principalities is at high alert. They plot, they plan. And God says, I have kept the nations wondering. They said, we know, we have intelligence, we have equipment, we have the best. What do you have to find a jet? What you need to look for is how they plot and plan against Israel, India, yes, against this nation, as you know, Canada, Great Britain. Now listen, the Norwegian territories, Scandinavian territories, that Estonia. What are you doing? There are those praying, and demonic powers are terrorized. Now, in the month of April, to open, I will expose and I will catch them myself. And terrorism shall take a turn.
Okay, then you can stop it.
And they shall say, now.
They'll say, now we have them. But do you really? That's what he says. So anybody, if you want to watch the rest of that, they'll put the link in the description and in the chat. So you can click the link and watch that. But there's an example that was very powerful. Did you feel that? I mean, you could feel it watching him. And you can feel it. And then look how accurate that, I mean, what we've just seen happening, India, Pakistan, the upper regions, that's where Kashmir is. That's the territory that India and Pakistan have been fighting over since 1947, which also happens to be the year before Israel becomes a nation in 1948.
Yes.
So that's
this is the 77th anniversary, I believe.
Right. And then he says April, the month of April. And that's when the terrorist attack happened in India, where the Pakistanis, the Islamist Pakistanis, shot and killed, and it was a terrorist attack in India. And anybody who couldn't say whatever Islamic prayer, I forget the name of the prayer. If you couldn't say the prayer, even if you said to them, because they were asking people, are you Muslim? And if they said no, they shot them. And so anybody else, they were trying to say, well, yes, I am, just to save their own lives. If they didn't know that prayer, they shot them. So there was that terrorist attack that happened April 22nd. So you notice my dad, he sees India, Pakistan, and then he speaks about the month of April and how it'll be exposed and terrorism will take a turn. I mean, that's pretty sharp. That's pretty accurate. All he's saying about the sound, and he's playing the piano like that, and there's frequency and sound involved. Okay, there the link is right there in the chat for everybody.
And chaos in those. So I'd like to point out. So first of all, I just want to pray a protection on all of the listeners of your show, and I've lost a lot of fears that I used to have, Donna. There was a lot of reservations. I felt kind of a new wind, Donna, and I would ask for all your viewers to have that as well. Now, I'm still very careful about what I say. I've been careful on your show. We haven't, in fact, it almost feels like we've said more, but we've said less than normally we have. We've covered a lot of things. But I feel like there are great issues that are coming with Islam. So I believe it was Albert Pike that wrote that the last world war will be fomented. So in these people's mind, I think these are texts that are important to them or important to someone that's but he said the last world war will be fomented by poisoning the Christians against the Islamics, and the rest of humanity feeling so disillusioned will having destroyed both at the same time will bring forth the needing some place to cast their adorations. I believe I'm quoting this off the top of my head. look for somewhere to cast their adorations. And that's when we bring forth the true light of Lucifer. So this is one of Albert Pike's quotes. Of course, they
Well,
claim.
one thing, I was watching last night a video, and something that I was sort of trying to remember. You think about the Crusades. That was a war over the Holy Land between Christians and Muslims.
Yes.
And that this battle has been, the formation of Europe even was affected by the Crusades and the wars that were fought. Because if you go back, like for instance, the Dark Ages were dark in Europe because of Islamic invasion. And so this has been going on a very, very long time. This is something my dad recognized as, he called it Baal Allah, the spirit behind this. Baal Allah.
Baal Allah.
Connecting it with Baal. And so that's also very interesting.
Let's talk about this just for a moment before the close of your show. So there's one of the things we both talked about here, and I just a few hours ago, in fact, Donna, Islam is. So I'm reading an article here. And I pray that the Lord guide the footsteps of President Trump. And I would ask for all of you watching to begin to pray for Israel. There's a lot of talking poorly about Israel. The demonic parties have gotten at the top of a lot of different things, including our nation. And what we're praying for in our nation is for a cleaning out of the depths of, that's what a swamp is. The things have taken control that we want out. I think there was a plan, just like I sort of quoted you from Albert Pike, to bring in Islam, and to bring in Islam, because that's what Albert said, that you're going to put the Islamics against the Christians. So to do that, you kind of got to fund them. They really don't develop the oil wells that they're selling you the oil from, or claim to be. They didn't develop the cars that they're driving using the oil, not one. They didn't develop the wheel, any part of the car, any part of the bolts, the nuts, any of it. So they've got to have the funding to do that. So, and if I were in Islam, I would begin to question those how did all that occur? Who is lifting this up? So you always have the Shriners with the Freemasons. I would, it's the honor of kings to search a matter out. And the Lord wants you to ask questions. Here, President Donald Trump is preparing to accept a luxury jet from the royal family of Qatar. And I don't know anything about any of these people, particularly their nations, but I do know the prophecies, and that we should protect our friends. And so I don't know anything about these particular decisions, but I know that there are some hard things said about betrayal in many of these prophecies. Nothing about Qatar that I know of or that I'm aware. I'm making no statement of that, but I have, but there's a lot about Islam in there, and there's a lot about Iran, and there's a lot about Saudi Arabia. And these are just prophecies that Kim gave. And there's a lot of history of those lands. So, for example, Iran is actually ancient Persia. That's where Cyrus is from. A lot of us, compare myself included, ancient Persia is Cyrus is who took over Babylon without a fight. Yet these countries have been taken over. If we go over to Saudi Arabia, well, Saudi is the name of a family. Arabia that currently manages this ancient province called Arabia, which is so these have a historical significance that's fairly large. Arabia today, they walk in circles around this stone. They call the area Mecca, this black stone. Well, Arabia has always been the place. It's the place that the Hebrews walked round and round, round and round. It's the place that people go in circles is Arabia. And it's a big desert, no matter how many hotels that you put on it. And I commend them for that work on Arabia. But God is stating that there's been too much blood. There's been more Christians persecuted and killed and tortured than you realize. and I've chosen now to hold those things accountable. That nation has also been very financially blessed. I think this man, Donald Trump, has gone out of his way to work with these nations. I'm not going to go further with that, but what I'm stating is that you've got issues with Islam, and the nations are being waken up to that. In Texas, we see Islamic cities, we see these different things, and I think there's a shaking coming. I would ask for prayer and protection in Colorado. You've had major bust M13 centers, and these combine up with Islam. Here's where I'm going with this. Somebody is funding all of that and bringing it to your shorelines.
Yes.
While you have this lady, Tina Peters, who is in prison, and we pray for her release. She was a election clerk in Grand Junction, Colorado, who is accused of trying to protect election data, which would be the job of an election clerk. That's
doing her job.
This is really what it is. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
She is a Gold Star mom whose husband died during the legal proceedings, and the judge in this case is stating that he's cutting her a break by only giving this 69-year-old woman a 9-year sentence while they are fighting in your news to release M13 members.
Yes.
You
exactly.
you are coming to a breaking point in something.
Yes.
And
you know what? I agree with you on Trump. Trump is making deals.
Yes.
Trump is. You'll notice he will not speak badly of people unless they attack him. If it's somebody he wants to make a deal with, he will publicly speak well of them.
Yes.
But he is making deals.
Yes,
and his goal being no nuclear war, because that's not what he wants. I know for a fact that that's something he's very worried about. And so he doesn't want the wars. He wants if you watch him on the news when he's talking even about Ukraine, the killing's got to stop. He was saying there's 5,000 people dying a week at least that we know about. I suspect that we may find what has occurred in the Ukraine will be similar to the way we discovered the Holocaust after World War II and what was actually going on there with the Nazis in World War II. And so, and I've come to this opinion because of things my dad prophesied.
Yes.
And I see someone in the comments, I just wanted to say, she was saying Rodney Howard-Browne and Paula White. My dad knew we know Rodney Howard-Browne well. He was with my dad when they were very, very young men, first going into ministry. And my dad actually did the worship for the very first church that Rodney Howard-Browne opened. He asked my dad to come out and do the worship. And so they were friends for many years. He's also South African. They were raised up in the same church. My Uncle Fred, which is Lou's grandfather, my great uncle, my mom's uncle. And so we know each other. And then, of course, everybody knows I know Paula White. Well, she was the one who was taking my dad to meet Donald Trump. And he was never able to make that meeting, but she knew what he'd prophesied about Donald Trump. And This was 2015, before all the Trump madness. And she was emailing my dad and calling my dad saying, you got to come meet Donald Trump. You got to come meet him. And so, God is using these people that he's using for a reason. And so anyway, this has been very interesting, a very interesting conversation, but we're actually out of time. But I want you to tell everybody about your most recent video, and then we're going to put the link up so people can get it. The 1607. I know you're working on the Exodus, but you just released 1607.
So Robert Agee and his wife Jamie and the putting up of your father on the billboards or the banners, they called themselves Banners for Freedom.
Yes.
And Robert had gone before the Lord, and he just saw a passage that said, "We will raise our banners." before the Lord. And so but another thing that they did, that the Lord had put on their heart, was something about first landings. And this land was dedicated to the Lord. And first landings in 1607. And a cross was plunged into the ground here in the United States, and the land was dedicated, Lord, similar to what has happened in South Africa. Donald Trump has reaffirmed the commitment, this first landings commitment, that this land will be dedicated to the Lord, and not just any Lord, the Lord Jesus Christ. The Baal worshipers even say Lord.
Yeah.
The Lord Jesus. These are powerful words. Now, this is heading towards, in a Trump train kind of way, the prophecies of your father that said you will have a praying president, but not a praying president when he starts. More than this, to drain the swamp and to have days of prosper, which is what all of you in the comments and in any video, all of it you want, even what the pagans want, if they're honest about it, is they want favor. And that favor comes from the Lord's hand being on this land. So when your dad said, he said, I see 2027, and this is an incredible year. You're going to have cures for cancer, while these other nations, these cats and dogs, including Russia, India, and Pakistan, China, and all its plans, and all these other things falling apart. And China is going to come back and cut a deal with the United States when they can't get out.
Agreements between nations.
Okay, all right. So we really don't want to, this is because this nation is remaking a commitment to the Lord. And he's going to pick up that commitment, and he's going to go forward and he's going to drain the swamp for you. And by the way, and this is kind of probably one last thing. So he said that your main enemies, Donna, and you said this in one of the videos, your main enemies are not from outside, they're within. And so I just thank all of you, and I pray a protection over your families.
Yes.
And an enjoyment in the days ahead. The Lord has taken this land. You're not at the end of it. You're only at the beginning. And some of your best days and most enjoyable days are ahead. And Kim said, even in his last broadcast, he was about to die, and this is what he said. He said, I'm not about to go backwards. I'm only about to go forwards. How many of you are ready for that?
We are. Oh my gosh, that was beautiful. Thank you, Trey Smith, so much for joining me today. And everybody, if you want to watch 1607, the link is in the description. Or you can just go to godinanutshell.com.
Thank you.
Or follow Trey on social media. I know you are on X, Real Trey Smith, at Real Trey Smith. And obviously YouTube, Trey Smith and God in a Nutshell on YouTube. So anybody, if you haven't already, I know most of you watching today already know and follow Trey. And you've probably already seen the video. But for anybody who doesn't know, hasn't seen it, go have a look. It's very powerful, as always, and anointed. And it was such a pleasure seeing you again this weekend, Trey, you and your beautiful wife, Julie, who is my friend. Yeah. And I just loved seeing you guys, and we're going to have to meet in person more often and have more time. And I wish I'd actually had more time this weekend. It was a quick trip, but next time we'll spend more time together. And, there was a lot of fruit that came from just that one dinner we had.
Yeah.
That we were able to cover quite a bit today in this show. Yeah. And so I will definitely have you come back soon as things develop. We'll definitely have you come back on and give us some updates. But everybody, please follow Trey Smith. And again, thank you so much for joining us today, Trey. And just before I go, everybody else, if you gave an offering today, or if you were going to, there's a couple of things I want you to know. We have these 2 books. This one, The Daily Light, for an offering of any amount. We want to send this to you. We do this because we want to bless you. We appreciate your support so much. We couldn't do this without you. We have a little bit of sponsorship with MyPillow and with Beverly Hills Precious Metals, but that's just a little. We would not be able to do this without you. We would not be able to bring these prophecies out to be heard, so people could hear the promises of God and know what promises to what is God doing. We wouldn't be able to do that without you supporting us, because we're not sponsored. We have, like I said, we have those little bit of sponsorships through some friends I made at the Reawaken America tour, but that would not be enough to sustain us. You have sustained us. And so we are so appreciative. So that's why we do this. So for an offering of any amount, make sure you use the QR code. If you don't like QR codes, go to the website and make sure you click the banner to let us know that you want this, because some of you give every week and maybe you don't want one of these every week. And then, of course, for $25 or more, we have this one. And this was released, it's over a year ago now, but it's our most recent release. And it's Prophetic Revelations, a collection of letters from the pen of Kim Clement. So anointed. It really helps you to understand the prophetic, the gift in him, how it worked. And he was very open about it. My dad really wanted everybody to know what was going on in him when he would prophesy these things. And he it was a great responsibility. And, I take it very seriously, and I take it as a great responsibility, just sharing this stuff. I'm not prophesying anything, but I'm sharing what was prophesied, because how could I not? My dad had died, and there I sat with all of these prophecies. And so I just started putting them on YouTube, and Mom and I decided not to shut the ministry down when Dad passed away, because as a prophetic ministry, we had all of these prophecies, and we wanted to make sure everybody at least had a chance to hear it. You can discern for yourselves. And we know it will help you. And that's the thing, is that God doesn't do this for nothing. It's not just to amuse us or shock us. There's a purpose to everything that God does. And so that's how the prophetic works. There's a purpose to it. And boy, did we need guidance through those years, especially through the Biden years. But, even with Trump, it was an unusual situation. It still is an unusual situation. But God sometimes needs to do things through unusual means in order to get his plans fulfilled. And the thing is that in the end always helps us. It helps us to understand. It gives us a deeper relationship also with God. And so, and then anybody who has partnered with us, we now have the Prophecy Vault partnership. And it's something we started last year because we were sitting with all of the stuff that needed to be digitized. And all of this footage of my dad. And so for those of you who are interested in partnering with us, you can do so. You can join our Prophecy Vault if you go to kimclement.com or houseofdestiny.org. Both of those websites will take you to the same place. You can read up about it. You can join if you would like. And there's a lot in their School of the Prophets, where my dad goes through and explains using the Bible. And that was very important. Everything was biblical and aligned with the Bible, the way he did things. He never detracted from that, ever. He was a follower of Jesus Christ very clearly and concisely. He spent how many hours every day, 3 times a day, sometimes more, in his prayer garden, praying. And wasn't just about him asking God for stuff, but listening to God, learning his voice. And it is a beautiful thing to have that. And so, again, for all of our Prophecy Vault partners, thank you so much. We have been able to do so much since we started this partner program. And for those of you who have already joined us and partnered with us, bless you. I mean, if tomorrow you don't want to miss Prophetic Rewind, those old meetings that we've been putting up there on Prophetic Rewind are so fact and full, and will inspire you and help you to understand the prophetic and the prophetic in you. So you may not be in the office of the prophet like my dad. Maybe you are, but probably not. Most of us aren't. That's very rare. But we can still utilize the prophetic because it is a gift of the Spirit. When you're filled with the Holy Spirit, one of those gifts is the gift of prophecy. And so it will emerge from you, and God can use you and your voice. And so many of us, and I mean, probably everybody watching right now, your greatest desire is to be used by God for whatever he created you to do. And so the prophetic is one of those ways. And that's probably why you're here watching today, because you have an understanding of that, or you're interested. And so welcome. And again, thank you so much to everybody for joining me today. Happy Mother's Day to everybody, to all the mothers. Happy Mother's Day again to my mother. And we will be back next week. And make sure you don't miss Analysis this Wednesday. Me and Christy, you don't want to miss it. It's at houseofdestiny.tv. Just go to our network or follow us on YouTube or Rumble. Follow us on X and Facebook and Instagram. We're everywhere. So you can find, even if, you'll be able to find those broadcasts. Look for Analysis this Wednesday. Don't want to miss it. I will be back right here next week, and we'll see what happens this week in the world, and then we'll come back and look at some prophecies and do some code breaking. So thank you again to everybody for joining us. I love you all. I'll see you next week.
We here at the House of Destiny are partnering with you to let our viewers, of course, know about your company. It's Beverly Hills Precious Metal.
Andrew, explain how that works.
So I'll walk you through it right now. So if you go to bh-pm.com, right there on the homepage, you'll see a form that you could fill out. And that form is very important in letting us know how we can help you. So you just put in your first name, last name, email address, phone number. There's a section that says, how did you hear about us? And in there, put Kim Clement. And then there's a portion where you could write a couple of notes down on the bottom. Usually within about 24 to 48 hours, we'll contact you. And then by phone call, and then we'll go over everything with you. This isn't a high pressure deal. We always recommend that if you feel uncomfortable, take a step back, pray about it. You will gain the answers that you need by doing that, and come back to us when you're comfortable.